PSG 2024 to 2025. Let's start with the most recent one. They said it would never happen. No Messi, no Neymar, no Mbappe, just a team. And finally, PSG did it. Not just the Champions League, the treble. Ligue 1, wrapped early. Coupe de France, dominated. And in the Champions League final, they destroyed Inter Milan 5-0. Not a typo. 5-0. The biggest UCL final win ever. Teen prodigy Désiré Doué lit up the final. Dembélé was unstoppable all season. And Luis Enrique, the mastermind. Second coach to win a treble in his career. Different squad, same legacy. This wasn't oil money chaos. This was structure, discipline, and cold-blooded execution. Paris Saint-Germain aren't chasing greatness anymore. They are greatness. Inter Milan, 2009 to 2010. Now this one, Mourinho cooked properly. 2010 was the year Mourinho went full Bond villain and pulled off one of the filthiest tactical masterclasses football's ever seen. Serie A was locked and Coppa Italia was in the bag. But the Champions League, that's where the legend was forged. Everyone talks about the final versus Bayern, and yeah, Milito was cold that night, but the semi-final versus Barcelona? That was psychological warfare. 10 men at the Camp Nou, defending like their lives depended on it. Lucio threw his body into every ball, and Zanetti ran like he was 25 again. People hated the way they played, saying it was anti-football. But ask any Inter fan, they didn't care. That wasn't just a win. That was revenge for years of Italian clubs being overlooked. And Mourinho dipped right after lifting the UCL classic villain exit straight to Madrid like a boss. And you know what's mad? They haven't even come close since. But speaking of chaos and legacy, wait till you hear what Pep's Barça did the year before. Barcelona 2008 to 2009. Fam. This wasn't just a treble. This was a revolution. Pep Guardiola walks into his first season as Barcelona manager and basically says, "All right, lads, we're going to change how football's played." And they actually did it. The La Liga smashed. Copa del Rey dusted. And in that Champions League final versus Manchester United, Messi was a menace. Messi, all 5 feet 7 inches of him, scored a header past Rio and Vidic. Madness. But here's what made it different. The strategy. Tiki-taka wasn't just passing for passing's sake, it was hypnotism. Xavi and Iniesta made entire midfields disappear. Messi would drop deep, turn, and suddenly you're 3 goals down. Plus that 2-6 demolition of Real Madrid at the Bernabeu felt illegal. Like grown men getting humbled in their home. Pep had them playing like robots in a rhythm. And the best part was this was just the beginning. Barça didn't just win, they changed the standard. Every club after tried to copy their blueprint. Some failed, some flopped. But this team right here, they built a dynasty. Manchester United, 1998 to 1999. This wasn't just a football season. This was a freaking movie. Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United had won the Premier League and the FA Cup, but no scriptwriter could make up that Champions League final. United were down 1-0 to Bayern Munich with 90 minutes gone. Game over, right? Wrong. The 91st minute came and Sheringham scored, and in the 93rd minute, Solskjaer followed to close the deal. It was absolute madness, but it wasn't just the final. The whole season was a roller coaster. The comebacks, the last-minute goals, the way Dwight York and Andy Cole were playing like they were telepathic. Beckham was putting in crosses from another dimension. Keane was, well, Keane, a one-man demolition crew. This treble had drama, more so because it made United the first English team to ever do it. Since then, City fans have tried to flex their treble, but respectfully, it can't be compared to this. This one was different. Speaking of which, let's talk about their neighbors. Because Pep did it again. Manchester City, 2022 to 2023. Alright, this one's fresh. It still has that new trophy smell. Manchester City finally did it. The Premier League, FA Cup, and their long-awaited first Champions League, all in one go. And Pep became the first manager to treble with 2 different clubs. And especially since it's Barça and Man City, that's historic. Erling Haaland came in like a Viking beast and dropped 50-plus goals. And it's funny because the UCL final wasn't even peak Man City. They didn't play their best. But guess what? They still beat Inter. And the journey to that win wasn't smooth either. They knocked out Bayern and Real Madrid like it was casual. That 4-0 against Madrid at the Etihad still gives me goosebumps. Critics call them Oil Money FC, but you can't buy chemistry like this. Still, some of us grew up on the original Treble Kings, like Bayern. You already know we gotta talk about them next. Bayern Munich, 2012 to 2013. Now this right here, this was Bayern Munich going full savage mode. After the heartbreak of losing the 2012 UCL final in their own stadium on penalties to Chelsea, they came back with a vengeance. Like, this was a full redemption arc. The Bundesliga? Check. DFB Pokal? Double check. And that Champions League final felt bigger than football. It was really tense, man. Dortmund came out swinging, Neuer made some huge saves, but then Robben, the same Robben who flopped in 2012, came through clutch in the 89th minute and the redemption story was complete. Jupp Heynckes had them balling like machines. Müller, Ribery, Lahm, and Schweinsteiger were all at their best. And that midfield duo of Martinez and Schweini was balanced like a perfectly tuned engine. People forget just how dominant this Bayern was. They were not flashy like Barça or chaotic like Inter, but ruthless, efficient, and deadly. Ajax. Picture this. Early 70s, total football is literally rewriting the rules of the game. Ajax, led by Johan Cruyff, were the original hipsters of football. They were not just playing, but dancing all over Europe. That season, they nailed the Eredivisie and the KNVB Cup and the European Cup. Well, they made it look like a training session and beat Inter in the final. What made this treble insane was the style. It was fluid, but relentless. Cruyff wasn't just a player. He was pulling strings like a master puppeteer. But at the time, this wasn't just winning trophies. They were changing the DNA of football. Every coach, player, and fan who loves the beautiful game owes a little to this Ajax squad. Speaking of trailblazers, let's jump to the OG Treble Kings, Celtic. Spoiler, they did it first and with style. If we're talking about OG treble winners, we definitely have to talk about Celtic, the Lisbon Lions who put Scotland on the map. This was 1967, before the Champions League was a thing, but their European Cup win still counts as the original big flex. They started with their domestic scene and smashed the Scottish League and the Scottish Cup like it was nothing. But the real magic was in Lisbon, where they became the first British team ever to lift the European Cup. The story here is pure heart and hustle. Every player was born within 30 miles of Glasgow, homegrown heroes. They weren't just a team, they were a family, managed by Jock Stein, who helped them turn raw passion into tactical brilliance. The final against Inter Milan was a thriller. Celtic played attacking football, going toe-to-toe with a defensively strong Inter side. The Lions' fearless style overwhelmed the Italians, with Stevie Chalmers scoring the winner. Next up, a Dutch classic that shook Europe in the 80s. PSV Eindhoven. PSV might not get the spotlight like Ajax or Bayern, but their 1988 treble was pure magic. Back then, Dutch football was all about skill and flair, but PSV mixed in some serious grit. They dominated the Eredivisie, snagged the KNVB Cup, and crushed the European Cup with a final win over Benfica. What made this treble wild was that the team wasn't packed with superstars, but full of determined players who played for each other. That final went all the way to penalties, but PSV kept their nerve and sealed the deal, making it their first ever European Cup. Eric Gerrits and Ronald Koeman stood out, but it was a collective effort. The whole squad chipped in, and it was one of the most beautiful instances of teamwork in football. Speaking of legends, let's jump back in time and check out the Portuguese powerhouse, FC Porto, 2002 to 2003. If you thought Treble Kings were just from the Big Five leagues, think again. FC Porto in 2003 was Mourinho's secret masterpiece, the one that put him on the world map before Chelsea came calling. They stormed the Primeira Liga, crushed the Taça de Portugal, and then lifted the UEFA Cup after an epic 3-2 final against Celtic. That was Porto's first European treble, and it was gritty, smart, and clinical. This squad was built different. Deco pulled strings like a magician, defenders were fearless, and Mourinho's tactics were surgical. He adapted, struck fast, and made every player believe they were world-class. And as always, after winning it all, Mourinho dipped and went to Chelsea to start a new chapter. But that 2003 treble? It proved that even without UCL, Porto could outclass Europe. Santos FC, 1962. You want to talk about legendary trebles? Let's talk about Pelé and what Santos did in 1962. Back when the game was rougher and the style was less flashy, Santos brought samba football to the world stage. They nailed the Paulista Championship, which was the São Paulo State League, the Taça Brazil, a national title, and the Copa Libertadores, South America's version of the Champions League. Pelé was more than a scorer. He was a one-man circus. Every time he touched the ball, defenders were left questioning their life choices. The man scored goals that looked impossible, made no-look passes, and had the flair that made football poetry. The Copa Libertadores final against Peñarol was intense, but Santos pulled through with style. That treble season helped lay the groundwork for Brazil's dominance on the world stage. And Pelé wasn't just a player, he was football's first global superstar. And that's the story of football's ultimate treble kings. Legends who didn't just win trophies, but changed the game forever. Which of these teams gets your vote for the GOAT treble? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button if you liked this video, and don't forget to subscribe for more wild football stories.